In this lesson, we'll show how to get your cutter operational. We'll adjust the necessary control panel settings, load media, mount a pen tool, and then send a job from Cutting Master 2 to ensure that the connection is good between the computer and the cutter. What you'll need for this is a sheet of paper or thin media to plot on. If you haven't done so already, take the power cord and plug the one end into the control box and the other end into a wall socket, and then turn the cutter on by pressing the switch on the control box. The plotter will then initialize by making a couple of movements. Wait until it has completely stopped the initialization before proceeding to the next step. Once the cutter initializes, press the pause key. The indicator light will illuminate, indicating that it is in pause mode. Press Next twice. Press F1 for interface. Press F4 for command, and then press F3 to make sure the dot is beside the GPGL. Change the step size by pressing the up arrow until the value is equal to 0.001. Press Enter to accept the value or the adjustments you've made. The next message will display a caution message that says that the tool head and arm are going to move. Load the media by first pressing Pause, Next, and then F4 for view. This will move the tool head to the upper right hand corner so that it's out of the way. This makes it easier to place the media on the table. As a tip, when using a smaller sheet on a vacuum table, a larger sheet or sheets may need to be placed on the uncovered areas of the table to give it a better suction hold down. To set the media so that it doesn't move, press the foot switch to start the vacuum. For the electrostatic table, press the Chart Hold button. Before installing the software, there are a couple of steps that must first be taken. When installing Cutting Master, it looks for either Adobe Illustrator or Corel Draw to install the plugin. So prior to installing Cutting Master 2, install the graphics application you plan to use, whether it is Adobe Illustrator or Corel Draw. The interesting thing about Cutting Master 2 is if both Adobe Illustrator and Corel Draw are on your system, or different versions of the same application, it installs Cutting Master 2 in every compatible version. While Cutting Master 2 doesn't need or use the Windows drivers that came with your cutter, it is always a good idea to install the drivers. This eliminates annoying plug-and-play messages appearing later on. Since Cutting Master 2 outputs to Graphtec's cutter language, known as GPGL, the cutter will need to be set to GPGL mode. This was covered earlier in this lesson. If you are not sure, review that portion of the lesson, or review the Cutting Master 2 manual. Finally, prior to installing Cutting Master 2, remove any previous versions of Cutting Master 2. To install the software, insert the installation DVD into your computer's CD/DVD disk drive. When this window appears, click Run Multisetup.exe. Click on Yes to allow the software to be installed. From this point, just follow the step-by-step instructions. When you get to this point, go ahead and install it on the desktop. This way it's easy to find when following along with this lesson. Click Next. Once Cutting Master 2 is installed, the first step is to set up the driver. This is done by opening up the Cutting Master 2 application. This is a standalone app that is used as a queue. When opened for the first time, it will prompt for a driver to be installed. Scrolling down the list, we can locate the FC2250 with its different models. In this video series, we'll be using the FC2250-60. Press Next twice. The port can be chosen in this window. There's a choice of either USB or serial. If you are using the serial port, it will prompt for the protocol such as the baud rate and bit rate. In this case, we'll use the USB port. Once the port is selected, click Finish. As a note, you can always change the driver later on. Open Adobe Illustrator or Corel Draw. The goal is to draw a simple square and then send it to the cutter using Cutting Master 2. In Illustrator, create a new document with a dimension of 8.5 by 11. When the document opens, choose the Square tool and draw a semi-large square. To send the square to the cutter, click on the File pull-down menu. At this point, you should see Cutting Master 2 under the File pull-down menu. If you don't, then it didn't install properly, so you might have to reinstall it again. If you still have issues with this, contact Graphtec. Hover the mouse over Cutting Master 2 and select Cut Plot. With Corel Draw, after drawing a square, look for the application launcher and then choose Cut Plot. When the Cut Plot window appears, click the Advanced tab to view the advanced settings. At the bottom of the window is where the step size or the resolution of the cutter can be set. This has to be set to the same resolution on the cutter or scaling will occur. In this case, we can set it to 1016. Once that is done, click on the Send button on the lower right corner of the Cut Plot window. When the job is sent, it will display in this corner of the window. At this point, the cutter head should be moving. There will be times when the tool head will have to be adjusted according to the thickness of the material. This generally has to be done when switching materials that have a significant difference between their thicknesses. To raise or lower the tool head, loosen the two side screws on each side of the tool head. Lift the head and place the orange spacer block that was supplied with the unit under the tool head. Lower the tool head onto the orange block so that it's level, and then tighten the screws. Take the blade holder out of the box and remove the cap. Now locate the CB15U blade. Take the blade in hand and insert into the blade holder cap, inserting the blade tip first. Then mount the cap back onto the blade holder. And then remove the cap, exposing the brass tip. Extend the blade so that it's extended to the thickness of the media. This may seem to be a daunting task, but it's not really. Place it next to the media you plan to cut. This should give a general idea of how far to extend the blade. Test the length further by test cutting a piece of material you plan to use. Then, with the blade holder tool in your hand, draw a circle on the material. Go ahead and remove the circle. If it is difficult to remove, then extend the blade by turning the red adjustment knob 1/4 of an inch clockwise, and repeat the test. If you plan to cut media with a carrier or backing, such as vinyl or sandblast, reach on the back side of the media or vinyl, and with your hand try to push up from the back side of the media under the cut circle. If it pops out easily, then the blade is extended too far. Once the blade is extended properly, mount it onto the tool carriage. Loosen the tool carriage screw. Take the blade holder and insert it onto the tool holder mount, and then tighten the tool carriage screw.